It really is. And that's why all these despair merchants, you'll be banned before you open your eyes. If you want to come into this chat and be like, the world's going crazy. No, it isn't. It's one of the easiest times to be alive in human history, as long as you face the social shame that comes from analyzing and pointing out deception. Like the speed, like E equals MC squared is nonsense. I can say that. And people go, oh, you think you're smarter than Einstein? I don't know if my IQ is higher than Einstein. Probably not, but he's a liar. So IQ means literally nothing if you are a liar. All it does is give you a better ability of lying. How was the Ohio show? I'll show you a little gravy. You guys want to see a little gravy? And then we'll talk about Einstein's fraud. But so much, I was talking to Amy about this last night, so much unnecessary pain and anxiety and depression comes from living in a world that doesn't make any sense. So when people say, oh, why do you care about the shape of the earth or the spin of the earth or the Titanic or the Federal Reserve or some of these laws or, the grabblers and stuff like that, you're wasting your time. There's so much we could be doing. That's fundamental to having a good life. I'm not saying I'm right on all these fronts. I'm reporting what I'm learning. But what is important is that you start from a square base. Any construction guy, I met this one guy in Ohio who's like, dude, watching your streams, I quit my job and went back to work in construction because I missed it so much. And just like being in 90-degree, 100 degrees, building stuff, making sure things are square. He's like, I got a fiance now. He's like, life is great. Because he said that one stream I did about squaring things where, because I'm trying to learn how to build stuff and from a position of extreme ignorance, one thing you learn is that when you start square with the 3-4-5 rule and everything, you got to start everything very square or else by the time you've constructed something, it's all a mess. And so the fundamentals are important. Like, how is the earth spinning 1,000 miles an hour? How is E equals MC squared work? Like, all these things don't make sense with global warming or nuclear bombs or any of the things that seem to control our life. Like, why does someone say, in today's money, something that simple, where it's like, oh, $30 in today's money, but back in 1950, it was $1. And then you just say, why? It's like, because of inflation. Why? And then they're like, oh, you shut up. It's like, don't you want to know about currency? Like the basic fundamental structure of our social contracts is based around currency. And everyone's like, you get out of here. It's like, you should know these things. And public school has done its damnedest to convince people a world exists that isn't real and that you should memorize and regurgitate. And I did that a long time. I know more about the fake space narrative than most people. I did that one night. I was still drinking at the time. But I was like, come on, bro. So some show was in here, and I'm like, quiz me. And I fundamentally knew more about, like, pulsars and white dwarves and red giants and all this nonsense that they claim. And I know that world. I used to want to be a paleontologist and dig up dinosaur bones and all this stuff. There is no consistent speed of light. It's impossible. Light can't be a particle and a wave. When you start seeing these things fundamentally, and then you ask yourself, so then why did Einstein get so much prominence? I'll tell you. There's a story behind all this stuff. The basic structure of light, they say that it's a particle and a wave. Because it has to be a wave because frequency is measured in waves, like the visual light spectrum. If you just look at the visual light spectrum, it's like between 350 millionths of a meter or billionths of a meter, like a tiny amount, and 700 or 800 billionths or millionths of a meter, right? These tiny little things. It's all about frequency is the rate in which a wave happens. So light is clearly energy, and it transmits through a medium. That's what a wave does. But yet space, they say, is completely empty. So how could light transmit through an empty space? So then the Einstein world came up with a lie that light is both a wave and a particle. That makes zero sense. Because if you have an empty lake, let's say you have a hole in the ground, and how do you measure the waves? You need water to measure the waves because the wave is energy transferring through a medium. If there's no medium, there's no wave. So then what they say it's a wave and a particle. That's fundamentally impossible. Something can't be a wave and a stone. That's like saying the waves lapping against the shore is both a wave, like energy, and just stones. Like that if you throw a stone into the water and waves come out like this, each wave is also a pebble. It's just nonsense. And it doesn't take IQ to understand this. It takes a fundamental commitment to honesty. And so the reason they're pushing that is because of the fake space narrative. Everyone knew that space was ether, which was a medium. Newton said that there's an ether, that it didn't move. Aristotle said that the earth was the center of the world, of the universe, and nothing moved. These are not exactly morons, guys. You know, don't sound like that guy from Princess Bride. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, morons. Like that's how people sound these days. When it's like, oh, I believe that there's that the space is ether. I think it's water, but that's just a theory. I can't prove that. It clearly isn't empty, or else it couldn't transmit energy. So when people go, oh, it's empty, you moron, it's like, so you're calling Newton and Aristotle and everyone else a moron up until the Great Lie. And so, interesting, I forgot about the medium bit. Oh yeah, of course. And so, to push this lie, the heliocentric lie, which is absolutely a lie. When you see a eclipse, they're saying that the Earth, the sun is 93 million miles away. The moon is 237,000 miles away, and somehow, because of perspective and relativity, it's all coming back to Einstein. Don't worry. Your relative position, and no, we're not talking about his first cousin that he had sex with. That your relative position determines all of it. And that it's the 1 in trillions chance just happens to be there. And the fact the moon does not rotate and has its cycles is just all chance. And so that's not true. It's fundamentally not true. And then NASA and all, it's lies based on lies, based on lies, based on lies. And it all goes down to the fundamentals of rejecting truth. And the heliocentric model is much more dangerous than evolution in these things because most Christians, Muslims, anyone that's honest with himself rejects the concept of evolution, Darwinian evolution. It's been fundamentally disproven, but yet atheists, materialists, and diehard Christians will both just completely accept heliocentric model, that the earth is spinning endlessly into an infinite void, that we're spinning 1,000 miles per hour, and then we're spinning around the sun at 1 million miles per hour, and that we're expanding in the Milky Way at 66 million miles per hour, and they won't bat an eye. These Christian fundamentalists, even though the Bible says that that isn't true, they will say, oh, yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so the Michelson-Morley experiment happened in the 1880s, and that'll talk about the shape of the earth as well, based on a guy named... One of the coolest things ever is how this guy fundamentally disproved the curve of the earth as described. I'm not saying what the earth is. That's a crossroads false binary. I'm not a quote-unquote flat earther. I don't know what it is. I know definitely what it is not. But a guy named Samuel Robotham, and then his debunker was named Shadwald. You can look all this stuff up. We'll talk about it in a second. But Michelson-Morley experiment, they took a beam of light and divided it and showed that the earth couldn't be spinning. Because the elite scientists of the age in the late 1800s were proving that there's no possible chance the earth is spinning. Because it would show two beams of light where the earth should have started and where the earth was going, and how, just like how a speed gun operates, it shows that there was no movement, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. And a lot of people were doing this over and over again. It was getting mainstream attention, and people were realizing not only would there be no air travel, if you go up in a hot air balloon, the earth would move 1,000 miles in an hour, And people say, oh no, but the atmosphere moves with the earth. No, no, no. That doesn't make any sense unless it's enclosed in a dome. Just start driving down the street in a convertible and jump out of the convertible and see how long your speed lasts. It mathematically, it goes against all angular momentum, all these quote unquote laws. It's just total nonsense. So because of Michelson-Morley, they needed an Einstein. Einstein was to reinforce the lie. And the lie is for global control. Not global, I'm using their words. Or realm control, whatever you want to call it. If you convince people that they are on an insignificant rock spinning endlessly in an infinite void, when people, the dumbest thing I ever hear is, why would they lie? That's like if you have a hostage in your house, a sex slave that you kidnapped, and you convince her that the entire world is dead and there's no way to get out and that you're the only place to get food. She's not going to try to escape. It saves money on fencing. So to convince a giant population that you're nothing more than an insignificant material object made by chaos from a chaotic explosion spinning endlessly in a vacuum, and that you just demean and grind down the souls of man to the point where they feel like nothing. They feel like slaves. And so when you do that, it's power. It's pure satanic power. And so when people say, M. Night's the Village, right. And it's so easy to prove it's false. This guy named Robotham, and when people say, oh, people are going to call you crazy and stupid, that's like being heckled by slaves. I'm not here to convince the world anything. I'm here to put some gravy on the biscuits with the bears. I'm having fun doing this. It makes me have a better worldview, less anxiety, less depression, less fear, better health, more joy, better family, more productive days. Every single check mark that lets me know something is a positive habit I am currently engaged in. And so if you want me to go back to thinking that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin drove around on the moon in a dune buggy and then no one can go back because they destroyed all the proof they went, and that, like, it's preposterous. I would be depressed. I would not want to have children in this world of nonsense. I would avoid conflict, because if nothing makes sense, if you're if you're in muddy water, you don't know where the piranhas are, so you just stay still. It's fundamentally unhealthy for your mind to go along with things that your instincts know is false. And when you enter this world that a lot of us have entered, where you speak what you believe to be true, you listen to those who you believe are honest, you do develop a sixth sense to lies. Like, you do develop a thing where when someone's saying something, you can hear a vibration of lies. Red Pill Rooster, yeah, he's saying what's up. Buzz Aldrin, oh, I know, it's laughable. Upside down world, lies. Yeah, and you don't want to be these people. Neil Armstrong spent his whole life hiding after the lies came out. But anyway, so convincing people of this, like this guy, you can look up all this stuff before it's erased. Samuel Robotham, the way he showed that the earth is not curved was genius, because he used all fundamental mainstream sources. With what? Lighthouses. Nonsense and lies they go away when people's lives and shipping lanes are on the line. You know, when you have men in a ship transporting gold and cotton and slaves and all this stuff, you don't play around with grab or lies, because you will lose your gold and slaves and sheep and all this stuff, right? So lighthouses have had a long tradition of saving lives. So there is a very, very, very detailed documentation of how far the beams will go into the water. How far will a lighthouse reach mariners, lost mariners? Checkmate. So this dude found no less than, I know exactly how many he found. He found 25 lighthouses where the math was so wrong, it was preposterous. Because the way the world is said to curve, if you do the math, in 100 miles, it should curve 6,666 feet, over a mile in 100 miles. Because it's a square, it's exponential. And according to the Pythagoras, all that stuff, right? Yeah, Samuel Burley Rowbotham, exactly. So all of the calculations that the mariners had lived and died by up until that point, and this is the late 1800s, it was he just went methodically through each one and proved it wasn't remotely possible. Not even close. Can't happen. And so the Joe Rogan of his day, the truth gatekeeper, was named Shadwald, and this makes me laugh. Shadwald was hired to disprove this legend, and he unfortunately for Shadwald, he found out that his math was perfect. That not only was he right, he was perfectly right. So how did they 8 inches per mile squared is Glober math? Exactly. And it's easily proven to be false. Now, I'm not saying that it's flat. That's something you got to watch out for. You don't know. You have no idea. Hubris really kicks in when you disprove something and then you immediately say what it is instead of just simply what it isn't. So anyway, the Joe Rogan of his era said that he this is how easy it is to lie to people who choose lies. He said that it was false because he hunt and pecked the various lighthouses he used, and it wasn't a valid sample size. That's complete nonsense. If one didn't work, it meant that the globe model was off. Nothing about the globe model works. They had to invent particle theory just to justify the vacuum in light. Light can't transmit through vacuums. That's been tested. If there is a vacuum, if there's an absolute absence of any medium, light can't be transmitted. So Michelson-Morley proves that the Earth is not moving because of the rays of light that they calculated with. So in comes Einstein. What does Einstein say? Einstein says, you know what C means in equals MC squared? Einstein equals marry cousin twice. He married his cousin twice. Fact. Anyway, the C is supposed to represent the speed of light, which does not change. 186,000 miles per second, or 300,000 kilometers per second, is the speed of light. Here's the kicker. In any medium. Okay, that goes against every observable law of physics that anyone can test. So light somehow is the only, not sound, not pressure, no other form of energy follows this rule. Like the speed of light is different in air than it is in water. It's different in concrete. You know, how energy transmits through a medium changes based on the density of the particles of the medium, right? This is obvious stuff. So Einstein comes along and says that the Michelson-Morley experiment doesn't work because the speed of light cannot change under any circumstances. Everyone said this is insane. That makes no sense. And so then he comes up with particle theory, that light itself is not just a wave, it's also a particle, which is absolute poison gravy. That makes no sense, fundamentally. And then he proceeds to give everybody a view of the universe that is complete nonsense. The theory of relativity, that light and everything bends around gravity, even though gravity can't be measured in a lab or recreated or described or explained. You know, these people, what they started doing is using constants or using givens that are not givens. The speed of light as a given, the gravity, 9.81 meters per second squared or something like that. That is complete nonsense. You right now measure the speed of light and it varies based on the medium. Right now you can measure the pull of gravity on an object and it varies. And it's like, the reason this all matters so much is because atheism, this is a fundamental. My stream's being grabbled right now, so I'll wait till you guys are back. Atheism is slavery. It's the upside down. The Patriot Act was communism. Gay used to mean happy. Now it means a perverted homophile. Atheism, they say that is slavery. Freedom is slavery. When they say you are free from God, what you really are is free from yourself, and you are a slave. And when you look at these hoaxes, it is done by men serving evil, and it's pathetic. And when this happens, they lose their souls. Albert Einstein died a miserable wretch, scribbling, trying to disprove his own theories, because what happens is you enter fractal hell. I hope some of you guys are following this. I know that I sound a little rambly, but it's all good. I'm not for everybody. Just 3,227 legends who are joining right now. More than the Daily Wire. And he's allowed on Twitter. Turns out people don't want to hear bloodthirsty, lying war machines as much as they once did. I think it takes faith to be an atheist. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I thought that too, and I understand that argument, and I'm not going to go like full blown against that argument, but it's the descent into being an animal. And one thing that the Freemason type people are trying to, the way they justify their crimes is they're saying that basically they're testing us. And if we fail the test and fail to identify the obvious nonsense, like the 9/11 towers, it was an obvious controlled demolition. Building 7 fell because of an office fire. These are things that it's like saying this is a chicken. So if you're on the level, if you lie to yourself on that level, oh, my rooster's just banging his hen right now. That's intense. Now he's standing on her, and now he's walking away doing his business. The hen looks fine now. There's no Me Too movement going on. We've had a lot of chicks hatch lately. We're starting to raise our own eggs. It's pretty great. Atheism is the religion of nihilism. I don't even give it that. It's like watching animals. It's trying to make the divine an animal. To believe lies, you enter a state of pure animal, where your entire life comes from physical pleasure. And I'm telling you right now, as someone who has that drive at one point, I had a lot of sex in my life. I drank a lot of booze. I had a lot of high fives, a lot of big ego-driven moments of triumph. It gets old really fast. Not like bad. It would have gotten bad if I sacrificed my life for it, which I fortunately didn't. Then it would have gotten like unlivable despair. But it just gets boring because you just get used to anything. Like if I wasn't motivated by truth in my life, my current life would appear to be unfair and extremely painful. Because as someone who's experienced the upper echelons of sexual and ego conquest, it doesn't last. And so once you hit those peaks and there's nowhere else really to go except for guys like Joe Rogan end up becoming homophiles, the reality of life and how unfair and painful it is if you don't pursue truth would be overwhelming to the point of potential suicide. Life is full of pain and unfairness, unless you know that this is a beautiful, that we're created in love, that you have a soul. So, and when you pursue truth, life becomes this incredible, you adhere to God's law to the best of your abilities, and be honest with yourself about that. And then you just unwrap mysteries and have fun with your friends and laugh. So life then goes from a very painful and unfair place to someone said cancel culture saved Owen's life. It's true. I probably would have lived a long life. I have good genes, but it would have just sucked. It would have just been endless fractal hell where you just keep entering a new little dungeon or a new little realm of like a fight or an unfairness. You know, watch PragerU or Crowder, any of these people that I not that long ago considered to be, you know, freedom loving, living men. And all they do is bitch. It's like when you're on the outside looking in and you're just like, you're defined by despair. You know, it's like who's attacking their free speech, and you don't see them build anything. They're not building a thing. That's great advice. No payoff for convincing your neighbor. It's how you live. Exactly. And it doesn't work either. It's like the more you just kind of live a good life, the more people want to live like you. You know, yelling at somebody about the earth being flat doesn't really do anything except make people think you're insane. It sounds insane. Even right now, it still sounds insane to me. But it's provably false that we live on a spinning globe. I'm not going to say what we live on, but like, don't think I don't know how it sounds. But the clarity of thought is so much better when you have a world that makes sense. And the 1,000-mile-per-hour spinning was disproven by Michelson Morley. You know, Einstein said a bunch of nonsense to keep people on page with the slavery model. And it's like, I know how it sounds. I know how it sounds to say, like saying the world is flat is fundamentally the thing a crazy person says. Like that's how we're raised. I know that. And it's like, I'm not this omega outcast in the woods. Like, look at the videos I'm showing you. I clearly get along well with people. People drive hours to see me speak. Like, I'm not crazy. People, it's demonstrable that I make enough logical sense and I make people happy in what I say that they come to airplane hangars and watch me do comedy. Meanwhile, you just need a bunch of brain dead sodomites going to see So Many Lies, though. Not really. It's all from the screen. It's all from the school. It's all from science books. In your life, there are exactly 0 lies. Like that chicken is standing right there. This is my hand. These are my hands. This is my coffee. You know, that's a cloud. We're not living in a deceptive world. The deception comes from outside, and you have to let it in. And what the point I was going to make earlier, and then I'll open some mail, is the Freemason types. The way that they justify the lies is they say that they're testing the sheep, and if you fall for it, it's your fault. Grabblers say the same thing to me. I had an Israeli friend who said that the Iraq War was our fault for falling for the lie. She was dead serious. I was like, there was no weapons of mass destruction. Saddam had nothing to do with 9/11, but yet we went to war for Israel. And she was like, yeah, you guys chose to do that. You have to understand how much your choice is a factor. And a lot of very evil people are destroying your health, your mind, your future, and they justify it because you go along with the herd. You think you're going along with the herd to be a good guy. No. Going along with the herd is sealing your fate. I don't believe in breaking the law unless the law gets real crazy. But I believe in and just acknowledging what reality is and not the earth is vast. Right. When you start acknowledging these things, life gets so fascinating. You know, that was my opening joke about the planes. I was like, I love hanging out with pilots because I'm always like, so what do you say we just go to Antarctica and check it out? It's like, no, you're crazy. I'm not going to Antarctica. It's like, hey, I came for the altitude, not the attitude. All JBP symptoms are consistent with lack of sleep, therefore consistent with meth. He's on meth, guys. BB, this is huge. My 35-year-old wife, who has been on birth control for 13 years, stopped it. We've been listening to you for 2 years. We're now trying for a kid. Your truth telling changes lives. Good. God bless you and your wife. You have a great child. It's going to be awesome. Polaris is one of the best points to crush global birth. Right. Well, everything crushes global birth. Once you acknowledge that it's possible, you see it everywhere. There's an argument. Remember that one plane that used to go like 1,500 miles an hour that you could go from like London to New York in like 2 hours? It was called, I can't remember what it was called, supersonic. It would go up to like 50, 60,000 feet. There's an argument that they stopped that plane because it was so obvious the Earth wasn't round. You know, I was listening to this one guy talk about, he was a pro athlete, and he sat in the cockpit during one of the transatlantic flights, and it was so obvious up there that the Earth was absolutely a flat plane that I think those type of things. See, this is just me speculating. This is the Concorde, right? This is me just speculating. I'm not saying that this is true or not. There's an argument that chemtrails are to keep people from being able to test the shape of the Earth. You know? They probably kept crashing into the dome. Well, they say the dome is 3,500 miles up, so no, they're way far away. But that's what they say. I have no idea. I know what isn't. Concorde was playing. Yeah. BB, I think my boyfriend is going to propose. Awesome. Great. My grandfather rode the Concorde. Absolutely a foot. It's absolutely not a spinning ball. And when Michelson Morley proved that, without a shadow of a doubt, they introduced Einstein to bend and twist and pervert our way of seeing the world. And while they were at it, they brought in fake nuclear bombs, not real, provably not real. Particle theory, that the light is both a wave and a particle, not possible at all. Everybody can see that. And that the world, the time and everything is relative based on gravitational fields that you can't measure, recreate, or even theorize with any accuracy whatsoever. And it's a model that's so bad, you can't even predict anything. That's why they invented, responsible for this. Hang on, we got grabbled, so I'm just going to make sure I make this point. Are we still going? Yeah. That there is the knowledge of when the eclipses happen and all this stuff. And then they just interject that into mainstream nonsense. I can't prove that, though, but it seems pretty obvious. I think it opens up way more than it closes down about our history, what's out there. I think that above us is water. The water's above and the water's below. I think our world is so much more biblical than anyone could possibly have imagined. And the Quran. And the Torah. And some of Buddhist teachings. I'm a Christian. I subscribe to the Bible. The Bible is truth. But when you see a lot of crossover, it helps the dialectic argument with people that don't agree with you. When you see a lot of the same stuff being said in fundamentally different parts of the world that all seems to line up a little bit with certain things, it's much easier to convince somebody something. Could we be in Atlantis? That's just a word, though. I don't know what Atlantis means. Dude, that's kind of mind-blowing. What if we are the lost city under the sea? Right? See how interesting this gets? If you Google who at Apple first in Wikipedia, it references the Quran. I don't know what that means. Hey, well, most of your subs now are not globe believers. Well, I just think that a lot of globe believers just have accepted that I don't believe in that and they can just be my buddy. I know people smarter than me that think that we live on a globe that are not liars, that are truth-telling people. I think that that's what's missing in a lot of society these days, is being able to disagree and still be buddies. It's all based on the trust that what you're saying you believe to be true. I can be friends with people from vastly different backgrounds if I believe that they believe it. The people I find fundamentally evil and I just have no respect for are people that know something and they preach and evangelize something else for their own material benefit. Those are the people that I can't stand. I know tons of people that think most people think we live on a fucking spinning globe, guys. I'm like most people. And most people like me. So obviously people are cool with that, the fact that I don't believe that. I'm not a quote unquote flat earther because I don't subscribe to any current model because I can't prove anything except for the hoax. That's it. My whole family doesn't believe in the globe. A lot of people are starting to not believe in the globe. I'm starting to see people, you can almost see it on planes now, where people are looking out the plane and they're like, Ugh. And that guy that disproved the curve with lighthouses was so brilliant because he used the fundamental numbers given by the maritime people about how far you can see a lighthouse and prove that it's thousands of feet off. It's like miles and miles and miles off. Every lighthouse he approached, and they couldn't debunk him. So they brought send out the grobblers, throw Einstein a shiny nickel and a cousin. King James can be published by anyone. I don't know what that means. The stars follow the same path. Dude, it gets so fascinating. Like the twinkle could be light going through water. How about that? It's endlessly interesting. Do you know that some of the comets and meteors that hit the ground have the same minerals in it as the ocean floor? I don't know what that means. I just know it's interesting. All right,